What's up, guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 2012 Ford Focus hatchback. Up front is a 2.0-liter inline-4, and down below is a 6-speed automatic transmission. Now, I am super excited to be driving this Ford Focus hatchback for two reasons. First of all, I haven't spent much time in this generation of Focus that wasn't the Performance ST model. The Ford Focus ST is pretty well known, and even the Ford Focus RS, those were performance-oriented hot hatches with manual transmissions. But this is a more average car, and so I always love capturing and recording normal cars too. But the second reason is the fact that Ford CEO, as of the making of this video, it'll be old news by the time it comes out, but as of the making of this video recently, Ford CEO came out and said, America needs to fall back in love with little cars. And this is an American little car that Ford themselves killed. And so we're going to be talking about a whole range of topics when it comes to this cheery little Focus, and I'm excited to share all of it with you. But if you would like to submit your own vehicle, you can head on over to my website, zachpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. But let's get back to that 2-liter inline-4 under the hood. Well, it's a naturally aspirated engine, doesn't make all the horsepower in the world, but it is a Duratec 2-liter, which was also found in a different configuration, but in the Mazda MX-5, the Ford EcoSport, and it was kind of their basic run-of-the-mill engine from the mid-2000s into the 2010s. I've always really liked the Duratec engines, and I think that they're decently strong and decently reliable for what they are, coming from an American manufacturer, which of course comes with its own stipulations. But if it was good enough for the Miata, it's good enough for me here today. Now, like I said, paired to it is a 6-speed automatic transmission, and this is where the wheels fall off the wagon. This is a horribly unreliable transmission. This car has about 110,000 miles on it. It's on its second transmission, and this transmission is on its way out again. For whatever reason, this generation of Focuses, they just have bad transmissions. And so you could find these in economy spec with a manual transmission. I'd highly recommend that. Or of course, going up to the ST for its manual transmission, but this 6-speed auto is just terrible. And as of right now, it's doing the thing. It's revving weird. From a stop, it feels like it's unsure of itself. It's holding on to gears weird. It's just uncomfortable, and at some point, it's gonna stop changing gears altogether like it did earlier in this car's life. This car was bought used, and the salesman said, yeah, we already replaced the transmission, so you're good. Well, you're not good, because it's gonna happen again. So that was a big killer of this generation of Focus, and will probably be the death of this car, because once this transmission goes, I don't think the owner has much willpower to fix it. So it's gonna be the end of this car's life at some point. Last but not least, this Focus is front-wheel drive. The only way to get all-wheel drive was to go up to the RS, which was a manual, fire-breathing Focus. How does it feel to drive the Ford Focus from 2012? Well, besides the wonky transmission, once it's in the gear, it actually drives decently nice. I like the visibility out the front. It's not sporty, but you know, it will get up and move sometimes. Steering is decently direct for an economy car, and overall, like I said, I don't mind driving it. As I said that, it just tried to downshift, and oh God, it was bad. But averaging 33 miles to the gallon, it's an efficient car, the engine's reliable, it's just that Achilles heel of a transmission. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have 4 physical gauges and a screen. Off to the left is my tachometer, off to the right is my speedometer, and in the center is my fuel and coolant temperature, along with that digital screen. Now, you can cycle through a couple different things. Ford has always been really, really good with the amount of information that they give you since about this era. From the 2010s on, they've always been very good. In the Mustangs, it'll even tell you like inlet air temperature and things like that. So very, very cool to see that in the Focus. On the steering wheel, on the left, we have our selector for that gauge cluster screen, as well as our cruise control. And off to the right, we have our selector for the infotainment screen, voice command, skip track, and phone options, along with volume. Off to the left, we have a climate control vent that has a phone holder on it, fog light switches, headlight switches, and gauge dimmer switches. Moving on to the door, we have our latch to get in and out, power mirrors, and power windows. Moving into the center, we get a very small infotainment screen. This is pretty typical of vehicles of this era, especially the Ford Transit Connect that shared a platform with this vehicle. A lot of this interior stuff you'll see crosses over from the Transit Connect. Like all of the buttons, so many radio buttons. This is peak button for Ford. I mean, just buttons as far as the eye can see. And what's funny is that all this was replaced by a touchscreen. Now that we're in the touchscreen era, I kind of miss the button era, but I guess the grass is always greener. Buttons are always pushier. That saying doesn't work. But down below that, we have our climate controls. We do have dual zone climate. Very interesting to see here in 2012. Digital readout for the display, as well as our rear defrost. And then we have the shifter. The shifter's fine. It's out of every other Ford product basically ever made in this era. However, you can plus minus on the side of the shifter if that's something you want to do. Down below, we do have cup holders, so we will attempt to do a big friggin' bottle test, but as most of you could probably guess, the Ford Focus fails the big friggin' bottle test. Then we do get a center console and the seats. The seats are cloth. They are absolutely nothing special. However, they're not hurting my back. It's a fine seating experience. I just wouldn't tear these out and put them in my home if given the opportunity. However, speaking of seats, we do have back seats. So let's go do a back seat review. All right, so we're in the back of the 2012 Ford Focus, and not really spacious. I do get a 12-volt outlet down here. No center console. Very, very basic. But as we'll touch on at the end of the video, I think we really, really need basic cars like this back here in America. There's nothing really like this available on the market from a big American company, and so I would like to see that again. It's not very spacious, but that's what you get for buying a Focus. If you wanted a bigger car at the time, you could buy the Fusion, or you could buy, actually, I think this was the final year of the Ford Crown Victoria, which has an amazing back seat, and the Mercury Grand Marquis and things like that. So not very spacious back here, but it works. I'm in the car. You can have 4 people, 5 if you really don't like someone to sit in the middle, and it works. That's all that the Focus was trying to do. Let's hop into the back and talk about the trunk. Right around the back of the Ford Focus SEL from 2012. Little button here on the key fob. It pops it, but it doesn't pull it up. You have to do the rest of the work. One of the big advantages of the hatchback is you get plenty of space back here. Now you can put down the back seats as well. Nothing really too crazy. I would have maybe like to have seen a 12-volt outlet or something of the sort, but not the end of the world. You do get a spare tire, which is very nice, but overall, that is the rear trunk space of a Ford Focus SEL hatchback from 2012. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and I've always liked the look of this generation of Focus. I think part of the reason is the fact that I was in junior high and high school when these were around, and so I saw them all over the place. I was starting to get my license, or I was at least getting excited to get my license, so I was starting to get really, really into cars, and this is just what I noticed. This is just what was at my disposal, maybe some of that, but I also think it's decently angular. It's not super angry where it looks pissed off for no reason, but it's also not blobby like the previous generations, and so I think it's a healthy middle ground. With all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving a 2012 Ford Focus hatchback? Well, my time here hasn't been very good. The transmission is just so obtuse, so in your face, terrible. I mean, it has the worst customer service of any automatic transmission I've ever driven. At least for something at or around 100,000 miles that's been decently well maintained, and for it being on its second transmission, come on, man. Show a little bit of respect. But the other thing I wanted to talk about was Jim Farley, the current CEO of Ford Motor Company. He recently said that small cars should make a comeback. And so why did Ford kill the Ford Focus here in America? Now, they still sell it overseas, or at least they did. I'm not sure if they canceled it yet or not. But why did they cancel it here in America? Well, according to them, people weren't buying them. And on paper and in sales, that's the truth. People weren't buying small cars. But it wasn't because people didn't want small cars. Manufacturers have taken a liking to building SUVs. There's two reasons for that. First of all, safety, or at least the illusion of safety. In a mother's eyes who has two children, or many children for that matter, they want something safe for their family. And an SUV promotes a safer look than a smaller car. You're a little bit higher off the ground, and in people's mind, that equals safety. Now, is that true or not? I'll let you be the judge. The second reason is that the manufacturers have an incentive to build SUVs. SUVs and crossovers, CUVs, whatever you want to call them, have to conform to less strict emissions. So if you build a bunch of hatchbacks, they have to get 30 miles to the gallon. Let's just say, that's not a real number, but let's just use that as an example. Well, all of your crossovers and SUVs, they only have to get 20 miles to the gallon. So why would you build little sedans? Why would you build little hatchbacks? We already have technology that'll do 20 miles to the gallon easy. 30 miles to the gallon's a little bit harder. Manufacturers are always going to take the easier route. Also, a larger car, they can charge more money for. They're going to increase their margins. And the dealerships are going to have an incentive to sell you the bigger cars because they get more on the back end. They get more money per vehicle sold because there's not actually a whole ton of money in new car sales as opposed to used car sales. Most dealerships make their money off of used cars. Well, when COVID hit and there weren't many used cars, they had to charge more for the new cars. Not only because they were in more demand, they could do that, but also to keep their bottom line up above water. So it's kind of a chicken and the egg or snake eating its own tail situation. All that matters to me here today is that these cars were good. Transmission aside, this particular transmission is bad, but this size of car, the stature of car, the style of car, and the Ford Focus as a whole, by and large, was a very good car, and I liked the generations that I've driven. So these do need to make a comeback, and I think they need to make a comeback sooner rather than later. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Jeff for letting me take out his Ford Focus here today. Jeff has been absolutely wonderful to work with. I have filmed several of his vehicles here today. This is just one of them, and so when the transmission goes out, Jeff will be just fine, and I'm very happy to hear that. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.